Moses and Aaron Foundation was established to bring together organizations and individuals who shared a common goal of helping those who are less fortunate. The foundation continues the legacy of my father-in-law, Rabbi Moses Hecht, and our father, Aaron Kaploon, and was named in their memory.
That legacy began in our home. All parents find room at the table for their own children. At our parents' table, all children were welcomed, especially those in need. When there's room in the heart, there's room at the table.
They have inspired us, and we have made it our goal to gladden the hearts of children.
10 years ago, I was expecting my first child, and people came to me and they said, would you like to have a boy or a girl? And I said, I'd like to have a healthy baby. And I really never thought that the baby would be anything but healthy. And when I gave birth to my son, Aaron, he was beautiful, and all the nurses in the nursery came over and they said how gorgeous he is. Family, friends, everyone came to congratulate me. First few months, he laughed on time, he smiled on time, he rolled on time, and all early development was on schedule. And then by about 7 months old, we noticed that he wasn't really crawling, he was kind of creeping on his stomach. So I talked to the pediatrician, and he said, I'm not so concerned, children develop at their own pace. And at 9 months old, when children are supposed to stack rings on a stick, he wasn't stacking rings on a stick, he wasn't stacking blocks, he wasn't pointing his finger, but he was bright-eyed and beautiful. And the pediatrician said, children develop at their own pace, don't worry. At a year old, we noticed that he's not pulling to stand, and he's not crawling so well still, and he's still not pointing his finger, and the pediatrician said Einstein spoke at 3. And I told the pediatrician that I would like to possibly just have him checked out. And I took him to a neurologist at 14 months old. The neurologist examined my bright-eyed, beautiful 14-month-old baby, turned to me about 10-15 minutes later and says, Mrs. Shapiro, we have a problem. Aaron has something called microcephaly. And microcephaly means that his brain is not growing. His brain was okay when he was born, but his brain is not growing. And small head, small brain, big problems. I said, well, Aaron never speak. And he said, I don't know. Maybe at most he'll speak a few words. I said, will Aaron ever walk? He said, yes, he'll walk. I said, when? About 3 years old. And then about a year later, I gave birth to my daughter, Hannah, and she was light of my life, and her development was precocious, lightning speed. She crawled at 5 months old. She pulled to stand at 9 months old. 10 months old, she was walking, holding onto furniture with one hand. And then by some fluke at around 11 months old, we noticed that her head wasn't growing, and she was developing the microcephaly as well. And 3 months later, that was confirmed, and she began to become developmentally delayed, which kind of catapulted me into a whole different world. A lot of parents of special children, like in giving birth to a special child, like planning a trip to, let's say, Italy and landing in Holland. You have to adjust to the fact that you've lost all the dreams that you had for that child, all the aspirations you had for that child, and that you may eventually find a different type of, different goals, different aspirations.
In our community, specifically in the Jewish community, until very recently, when the family had a child that wasn't well, it was something to be embarrassed about, something to be hidden, something to be, an alternate home was to be found for the child.
In the early stages, I would say even as recently as up to a decade ago, families at large were afraid or embarrassed to have a child, to be known that they have a special ed child. And they were referred to as, they were closeted.
In the shtetls of Europe, we know that the children were born with a disability. There were no social agencies to go to. So this child lived in a one-room home with 11, 12 children, and there was no one to turn to. So the moment that child was able to go to the bathroom on their own, which often probably took until they were 9 or 10 years old, they were put out the door because there was no room for that child.
The way they let children just lie around all day, their dirty diapers and starving sometimes, if they were just behavioral problems that let them knock their head in the wall and bruised, or they beat them up, just like be able to control them a little bit?
So what happened was that child became an adult running around grunting on the street because there was no speech therapy, there was no physical therapy for that child, there was no occupational therapy for that child, there was no any kind of therapy for that child of any kind, no guidance from any source. And so what happened was the child would grab food and run and became the laughing stock of the community. And that's what many of the Rabbanim and many of the rabbis and grandparents that have any recollection of that particular moment in time, that's their zeicher, that's their remembrance.
The stigma is still there, but parents are tolerating it more because it's a very large support system in our communities, large.
Many of the families that have had a child with a disability, I mean, the moment that you have the child, the first thing that goes through your mind is, this is going to ruin an opportunity for marriage, what we call shidduchim, or marriage prospects in the course of the future. And one thing that I found that is consistent is that every parent has that initial response of, I want to run as far as I can. When our daughter was born, the first advice we got from the doctor, Dr. Smith, I'll never forget it, she looked me in the eye and said, you know, your child has Mongolism, what we call Mongolism, or Down syndrome, or trisomy 21, and you should consider locating an institution and placing her there and getting on with your life.
No one ever stood up before to talk. She stood up to talk, and she, with a very firm, angry face, says, Mr. Khan, who do you think you are to sit here and to tell us what to do with our special child? What do you know what it's like to have a special child? He started saying, when my son so-and-so was born, I couldn't talk to my husband. We blamed each other. And when we tried to reconcile, then our parents were fighting. My parents blamed his parents blamed my parents. I was embarrassed to go home. I tried to stay in the hospital as long as I was possibly capable of staying there, as long as the insurance will keep me there. When I did finally get home, I was embarrassed to call anyone, to tell anyone. My friends called, I wouldn't come to the phone. I wouldn't take my son out on the street. He was physically handicapped, he was deformed. I was so embarrassed. When we finally reconciled ourselves, we wanted to go out for an evening. We couldn't find a babysitter. Nobody wanted to touch our child. We were afraid of him. You know what it's like, locked up in your house for months at a time, not being able to go out because nobody wants to babysit for your child? But the burden of that parent, how do you measure that?
Every child is good. Every child is good. And we have to find that goodness within him. And if we don't do it, that child may be lost.
In the end, we'll all be judged by how we treated those who needed help among us. And the people in most need of help are the people who don't know how to ask for it. And that's so many of the special children in our community.
First contact I ever had with any special child was a friend of mine called me up that there was an abandoned child in the hospital. They needed to have visitors because they wanted the child should be held by someone other than a nurse. He curled up in my arms, and it was an amazing feeling. And just volunteering that one time made a tremendous impact that at that point I knew things had to happen.
The initial idea really is a collection of thoughts and ideas from the entire family. We're a very active family in many issues, and many years we've been involved in the community. And my wife and I both come from families who've been devoted to community for the last more than half a century, and their parents and grandparents before them were also involved.
Basically, that day was the creation of the Moses and Aaron Foundation. I went home, I called my father, and I said, I think we have a child that I really want to help, and we haven't decided what we want to do in memory of our grandfathers, and I think this would be a perfect situation. And we created an organization. The first project we ever did, we paid for the circumcision and naming of this child and the medicines for this child. This child ended up having about $200,000 in surgery, some of which was donated by the hospitals. The doctors had said that he would never eat normally. He'd be severely, severely retarded. Right now, the child is a functioning Down syndrome child. He eats well. He has an amazing smile. He gives you a hug that will live in your heart forever.
The two people after whom the foundation is named, my late father, Aaron Kaplun, and my late father-in-law, Rabbi Moshe or Moses Hecht, were involved in community endeavors for more than half a century, both of them.
Well, I met Yehuda Kaplun, who seemed to have this amazing energy coming from him. He told me that he has a show and that he would like me to write a song for the finale. And I interviewed Yehuda. His dedication and his zeal and his excitement in a very nice, classy way was very, very interesting to me. That's how I came across the Moses and Aaron Foundation.
Yehuda's made this his mission in life. And there's not much more that one can be proud of than that. That's about as good as it gets.
But Moses and Aaron Foundation is a wonderful organization, and it memorializes those two great men who worked so hard and did so much for their communities.
I think that one day, most likely, we will put the name of the organization as candidates for Nobel Prize.
Moses and Aaron Foundation has brought together all of these people, a recreational, relaxed atmosphere where people can come together and enjoy themselves.
The community ought to thank the people of Moses and Aaron for doing these things, for giving them the opportunity to help the special people.
We wanted to maintain and keep their legacy alive with something creative, something which would respond to the needs of the time, namely providing a service which somebody else was not doing, and secondly, create a spirit of unity in the entire community.
Instilling into each and every child that feeling of, I can make a difference, and I'm going to go out there in the world and impart to the rest of the world that which I learned and that which I know.
Thanks to the Moses and Aaron Foundation, and specifically, and outrightly specifically for Yehuda Kaplun, for what he's doing for us, and for all the organizations.
In early 1997, we made a decision that one of the ways to highlight what the foundation wanted to do and achieve would be to create an event where children could come as the guests of honor.
Children are sincere. Children will talk to you what they think, what they feel, and what they need in a genuine way. Music is also a pure method of communication. It comes out from the heart.
Close to 3,000 seats are being given away for special children to attend as the guests of honor. It is a ridiculous amount of work and effort and time, and it's volunteered.
That is a key to this particular event. It's a cross-section of organizations that provide for children, and it is so important that the children stand out there as the symbol by which we all contribute to, by which we are all here for the benefit of.
People thought that no one would want to bring their children to this event because of the stigma attached to having a special child. And that was from day one with everything that we did. That the stigma of coming out, that children used to be hidden. People were not happy to say, I have a special child. That 20 years ago, children sometimes wouldn't leave their house. They'd be closeted or be educated in the house to the limit of their, to where they could go with the mother teaching the child.
Music is a powerful, powerful tool, and if you channel it in the right way, a lot of great things can happen through it, and I see it with my own eyes.
These children respond in the most remarkable fashion to music. As MC of the program for the last 2 years, I have to tell you that between getting up to introduce the singers, I'm brought to tears.
It's an emotion, whether it's happiness, whether it's sadness. You could channel music to whatever emotion that person's going through. A person listens to sad music, he puts himself into that zone, and it could either uplift him or bring him down. He could channel that emotion how he wants. Music has that power. It affects you. It's pure, unadulterated emotion from them. They don't show there's nothing hiding it. It's just their true inner emotion coming out, and you see it in front of you.
We're going to have a sign outside the Javits Center, a world-class place by anybody's standard, which will say a musical tribute to outstanding children with the Moses and Aaron Foundation.
What Chazak means just be strong, hang on, and be your best. So it's a very positive song with a very positive message.
Looking forward to seeing 2,000 kids with their families sitting there all in front, and this is probably the first time I've seen that many in one shot, basically all in one, basically dedicated only to them. They're the special guests of honor.
If in fact you can put together 1,000 people, you have accomplished a tremendous feat for the special ed individuals of our community.
The parents and the therapists and the people that work with these children on a daily basis, they're our best supporters. They're our biggest judges. And every single one without fail will tell you that we have made an impact on the lives of thousands of handicapped children. And that's a unique feeling, and that is a very special feeling, and that is what carries us through difficult times and through the struggles of setting up events.
Kol HaKavod to the Moses and Aaron Foundation for doing such a remarkable, unprecedented, historical event, sponsoring a situation, an event of such a glorious magnitude, where children from across the continent, special children, will be able to be united under one roof and being the guests of honor.
Every single year we have our miracle story, as we say. It's where a child has become more animated, more confident, children are more respectful, and it's become I actually await the miracle. I want to know at the end of the concert which child, or which 2 children, or which 5 children we've affected, that their confidence has grown, their therapy is better, their relationship with their parents are better.
It is an honor that is not only being bestowed on the special child, but I believe the true honor is on the entire community, that we are privileged to come into one major hall, a majestic setting, that we show our appreciation to the special child.
The stigma attached to these children will only be broken and only be changed when a mother can walk down the street and say, this is my child, even whether it's Down syndrome, cystic fibrosis, blind, or any other disability. But that you won't avert your head, and you will smile, and you will say, hi, how are you, the same way you would say it to another child. That is how you break stigmas. From nursery straight through college, it should be a mandatory course in human dignity. A child in the wheelchair hurts me, or anybody involved working with handicapped children, the same way. But you have to overcome that, because it's your responsibility to overcome that in order to help that child. It's not enough to write a check, and it's not enough to just be a volunteer. You have to impact that child's life. And when you impact that child's life, you change the stigma that society places on these children. And one of the parents of the special child told me that she looks at it as a miracle, what some parents take for granted every single day. When a child walks down the street holding their mother's hand, that's a miracle, because some other child is not able to do that and hold their mother.
1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and.
Tried to do something that nobody else has tried to do in New York City ever. To bring the smile to the hearts of a child that doesn't smile. If there's room in the heart, there's room at the table. What happened to the fact that we can't reach out to help somebody that needs to be lifted and inspired? My friends, that's what we're here to do. I'm not here to give anybody any speeches about what any individual should do. All I can do is ask you. There's some tough issues on the table we're going to have to deal with in terms of cost and factors and overhead, all the good stuff that goes on in making any event possible. We bring all the organizations together from every philosophy, and we sit them at the table and say, friends, we have a big problem. Let's address the big picture and forget the little things. So we want our special guests to feel special, glad in the hearts of a parent and child. The next thing is, we have brought together every aspect of the Jewish community. Every different faction is coming to this event, and others from outside the Jewish community. Our request is to the guests, give 1 hour a week on a volunteer basis. Let some poor lady who has 2 Down syndrome children at home go out and have a hair done at the hairdresser's. Babysit, that's all, for 1 hour. We ask you just to understand where we're coming from. We will move as far as we can towards you. We ask you to move as far as you can towards us. I'd like to personally invite all of you to be in attendance that evening, because if you can walk out with a dry eye, I'll be very impressed. I've never seen anybody who has not seen the video of the previous events and not be moved to tears. I finish with one line, a very brief story about a mother who told the story this week. What was the happiest moment in her life? When her child took the first few steps, a number of years of age, held the flowers upside down because they didn't realize it wasn't the right way, and said, "Mummy, I love," couldn't finish the third word here. That's who we touch. That's what we're going to do. We want to touch their souls. We want to touch each other's souls.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rabbi Yaakov Kaplun, president of the Moses and Aaron Foundation.
I'd like to extend to one and all a warm and heartfelt welcome, especially to our guests of honor. We're honored by your presence. On behalf of our honorary chairman, Nobel laureate Professor Elie Wiesel, I can truly say we are delighted to have you here with us this evening, and a very, very happy Purim Katan. Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi said that words are an expression of the heart, music the quill of the soul. Tonight I propose that we express our feeling of unity both from the heart and the soul. There are places and temples in the heaven above that open their gates only to the sound of music. So let us now unite together with the sound of music and begin our concert featuring the leading artists in the world of Jewish music. Ladies and gentlemen, sung by two great performers, dear friends of the Moses and Aaron Foundation, and appearing in their second Chazak concert, please welcome Yidel and Mendy Wold.
Very much the same. Oh, you do know who I am. Yes, you do know who I am. I'm just like you.
Ladies and gentlemen, appearing for the first time at a Chazak concert, Shlomi Dak.
Say hello to Robbie Rosenwasser.
to turn the stage over to Miss Marla Lerman to present her grandfather, David Buntsman, with a very special award.
I am pleased to present this Lifetime Achievement Award to my grandfather, David Buntsman.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Buntsman.
But my friends, tonight, the Moses and Aaron Foundation miraculously have brought together over 2,500 children and their families, special, outstanding children, and that, my friends, is a miracle.
Chazak, Chazak, Chazak. For everyone, we will go far. It's not I am, but who we are. We need just to reveal it, or we need to try and feel it, and never are we alone. We have each other as our own. Oh, nothing can divide us. Oh, for we are forever These are times when we might drift apart and go our own
separate way. But the spark from above that we share is alive and ablaze.